the only thing that's different is my mustache. I see all these NFL players, in the preseason with their little mustache. Well, I'm just growing mine out to show y'all whose mustache is boss.
Is that? Should I take that as a sign of aggression towards me? As you just showing me that you can grow hair when you want to because I'm follically challenged?
Well, see, if I was gonna do that, Matthew, I would go from the top with it. I still got it going at the top. See, I ain't gonna do you like that. That's why I wear the hat. So we just go with the facial hair.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rodgers alongside Matthew Berry, Jay Croucher. Unfortunately, no mustache Lawrence Jackson today.
Yes.
But
He'll be around later.
He'll be around later because today's a massive day.
Huge day.
It's our show league draft. The League of Assholes, actually.
That's right.
Is literally what the league is called.
That is the league.
So,
that is the league name.
LOA.
Do you know why? it's the League of Assholes?
Because you got upset once at a small thing?
No.
What, once?
Yeah, by the way, that's
One
actually
time?
a good answer. That's actually a good answer. No, because it's filled with assholes. That's why. Because it's the League of Assholes. No, I didn't get upset at a small thing once. I got upset at, I think, a legitimate gripe that I can't remember right now.
Doubtful.
But
We can go through the list.
Sure.
How waivers were.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I forgot what it is.
That you can't stop the draft clock for no reason.
It's a bunch of assholes. You have no idea. It's like
the
just,
scoring.
Yeah, all of it.
Like in week 9, not before the season.
I just
the
want
scoring in week 9.
I have to tell you guys. I cannot. On camera one here. Let's go to camera one. All right, thank you. I just want you to know. Part of the reason I love the League of Assholes is because they beat all these assholes. That's what's important. Like, honest, I'm in a million leagues, and like you win some, you lose some. And at this point in my life, I've won so many leagues, I've lost leagues, whatever. It doesn't actually matter all that much to me. But this league I cared about last year because it's filled with assholes, filled to the brim. And you know what I did? I took them all down, including stupid Dev, who's coming back for more. I can't wait. I can't wait. All right, we can go wide shot now. But I'm just saying that's what it is. That's like, I don't know if you guys out there ever have experienced this, but you're in a league just filled with people you just want to crush, you want to beat them like a grape. And you know what I did last year?
I
did. And that's exactly what I did last year.
Like a grape.
I crushed them like a grape. I crushed their hopes, their dreams, their souls. These two idiots have to sit here for the next year and refer to me as champion because that's what I am. I am their champion. I am their superior. I am better than them. I have proof. I have a title to show for it. And until another title is crowned, and it might be me again, honestly. Like, I think I got a good shot this year. But I'm just telling you, we haven't even drafted. I know. I know what you guys are going to do. You're going to pick Najee Harris in the second round. It's fine. It's all rookies for Connor. I got this. My point is that for the next year, you a-holes have to refer to me as champ because that's what I am. I am your champion.
Okay. Well,
be sure to show the standings every week. Championship hangover is the rumor going around. You party too hard, celebrate a little too hard.
A little bit. I had the Travis Kelce summer.
Yeah.
I was
Travis Kelce, Matthew Tkachuk, who didn't sleep for 3 days after winning the Stanley Cup.
Again, Matthew's 5-8 season the previous year. Just
we never hear about
it's
it.
mentioned.
It's completely written out of history.
I made the playoffs. I feel like, and I lost.
No, you didn't. No, I'm actually sure you did not make the playoffs.
No one remembers that.
Minus 50,000.
No one remembers ancient history.
He always has that league the way it finished, like ready and available. It's got to be in a folder
he
on his phone.
He actually carries it around in his wallet next to photos of his children.
In front of the photos
of his children. That's exactly right.
Sorry, let me get my league standings out of the way to show you my kids.
When you go into Pete's wallet, it is literally like it's the league standings, it's his health insurance, and then like it's the picture of his kids. That's basically, that's all he's got there. And then like a Subway card. So, all right. Anyway, today is draft day. People are voting on the draft order. We'll wait to see. I guess tomorrow we'll reveal like who's in the League of Assholes. I mean, it's a bunch of assholes.
Yeah, we'll show some results. Yeah, we're gonna have a ton of clips too. There's a lot of nonsense that goes on. If you didn't watch last year, we taped stuff during the draft.
That's true.
There's a lot of banter, a lot of hurt feelings.
Yeah, I can't wait.
A lot of requests for the draft to just stop.
Yeah, let's pause it. Let's pause it.
So we'll see how it goes. But we are going to continue our position previews today. It is the quarterback primer day. Now, if you have missed the last couple of days, we've done wide receivers, running backs. We've done the whole lot. So now it's quarterbacks today. Go back and watch those.
Linebackers.
Yeah, we'll get to linebackers. If you are a sicko.
By the way, just a heads up. As your champion, I just want to give both of you guys a helpful hint for tonight's draft. it's a Superflex league. You're going to need at least one quarterback, and ideally two.
I'll give you a helpful hint.
Yeah,
it's at 1 o'clock today, not tonight.
Oh, God. Okay, well, you know what? That makes sense.
Important.
That makes sense that they would tell me the wrong time because that's the only way they've got a shot at beating me is if I have to auto-draft. But no, I'll be there. Yeah. I'll be there with bells on.
Yeah. What I'm looking forward to is we're ordering pizzas, and I know that you start to get flummoxed when you have to deal with multiple things at once. So you're eating pizza, you're on camera, you're smearing across your
I just,
shirts.
I got a lot going on. There's been a lot going on. I don't think you guys understand.
Trying to find somebody down the list.
Yeah, exactly.
It's truly, whatever you think how organized this is, because we're a fantasy football show, the draft is the most chaotic draft you will ever see.
Yeah, because because I leave it to other people to organize it, and then they don't, and then it's a disaster.
Bus rolled over Steven in the first block of the show today.
1,000%.
Man.
Steven. Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's get into the quarterbacks then.
Sure.
I mean, you already gave us a really helpful hint that you should take one.
Yeah.
And if you're in Superflex, you should take a second one.
Yeah.
It really helps you.
Right.
What's the strategy behind this position specifically this year?
I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and obviously there are mobile quarterbacks at the top of the rankings, of my rankings, the top of most people's rankings as well. I think just to sort of talk about why is that, why do you want that, just very simply, you can earn points with your legs and your arms versus just your arms. Just to give you some actual stats to back up sort of what you know intuitively, right? Last year, the 5 quarterbacks who rushed for at least 400 yards combined to average almost 20 points a game, 19.9. So it's a much clearer path to elite fantasy production at a quarterback position if they can get points with your legs and your arm. Last 2 seasons, every quarterback that has finished top 5 in points per game had at least 240 rushing yards. That's one of the reasons why you see I'm lower on CJ Stroud than consensus. Why I don't have a lot of shares of Joe Burrow, proud fantasy life investor who I love, but why I don't have a lot of shares of Joe Burrow this year. Why Dak Prescott is lower as well. Just again, you want guys that run, and if you don't get one of the elite guys, the Allen, the Hurts, the Jacksons, Kyler Murray's my ride or die. We've talked about Anthony Richardson, even guys like Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love, they'll get you some running. Then you get a guy like Jayden Daniels, later in the draft. And so we're going to go through this all, but honestly, that's what it is that you want a mobile quarterback, and to the extent that you get stuck without a mobile quarterback, there's a sameness, as you'll see we go through the tiers, there's a sameness to the pocket passers that I think you can, all right, if you're going to get, aced out of a mobile quarterback, at least wait then on a pocket passer, because you'll see it's not worth drafting up for the pocket passers.
Yep. I think what's most glaring to me, we'll get to it, but just the depth of the position once you get outside the top 20 guys, it's nuts. There's guys like Matthew Stafford's going 23rd. Geno Smith, who was an elite fantasy option 2 years ago, he's going 25th among quarterbacks on Yahoo. So, I mean, we'll get to those guys, but it is an unusual amount of depth.
Before we do, let's take a look at Tier 1. Obviously, Josh Allen always kind of headlines this list. It's Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and then Patrick Mahomes. So I think the simple question is, Matthew, everybody always wonders, hey, how early can I take Josh Allen if I'm somebody that wants an elite quarterback? Where's the starting point comfortably? I
have him as a 4th-round pick. I have him at number 35 overall, which is basically, depending on the, if you're a 12 or 10 team league, but basically, into the 3rd round, top of the 4th is about where I'm taking Josh Allen. Having said that, look, and so that's where I would take him. But, I've had people say, well, wait, I really want Josh Allen, and, I don't think he's going to come back. Can I get him at the end of the 2nd? Is that okay? Is that too early? And my answer is always just that's earlier than where I would take him. But you're not losing your league because Josh Allen's your quarterback. It's fine. Get your guys. I'm always a big believer in that. But Josh Allen has been a top 2 fantasy quarterback for 4 straight seasons. More games of 20 or more points last season than all other players. 3 more than any other quarterback as well. Just such an incredibly high floor and a high ceiling for Allen. The rushing, the passing, and it's a weird thing to say, but for whatever reason, I actually think as it relates to the Bills offense, there is an addition by subtraction. It does feel like Stephon Diggs was a bit of a distraction last year. Obviously, there was some inconsistency to Gabe Davis. So
offensive coordinator change mid-season.
Coordinator change mid-season. So I feel like things are sort of aligned here. Josh Allen has his guys, right? They bring in Curtis Samuel, they draft Keon Coleman, but bigger role for Khalil Shakir. He loves Dalton Kincaid. He's going to run another year of James Cook. It should be another potent out offense that Josh Allen will be in charge of. Anyway, Josh Allen, by the way, proud Fantasy Life investor. He's my number 1 overall quarterback, and not because he's so smart with his investments.
I think maybe people don't think about it like this, but Josh Allen is the safest bet in fantasy every single year. Like you mentioned, he's been the number 1 quarterback 3 of the past 4 years, and then the year that he wasn't, he was second. Yeah. And just the rushing gives you such an insanely high floor. And it's for him to be doing this in Buffalo as well, where in the second half of every season, the weather obviously turns, it gets harder to accumulate passing yards, but he's just so dominant on the ground. He's continuing to add to that. Every year there's the thought that Sean McDermott says, we're going to kind of protect Josh a bit more.
Never happens.
No, they're never going to protect Josh. If you start protecting Josh, then you lose the value of Josh. You lose what makes him special is that he is a battering ram, and he just seems, to be indestructible. Touch wood, because you're indestructible until you're not. But I think that with Allen, just with the rushing, with obviously the passing, and then also the other thing too is that, look at the Bills' schedule. They don't have any easy games. There are no layups on that schedule outside of the Patriots right at the back end of the season. So I think they're going to have to be throwing more than people expect too.
And he could be fueled by hate this year, because Josh Allen in an anonymous poll was
my team name.
He was voted as the number 1 most overrated player.
Wow.
By fellow players. This wasn't by fans, by the way.
See, this is why we can't have the players voting for things.
Yeah, what do they know?
Josh Allen is the second best quarterback.
Josh Allen taking it all in good fun. So you're telling me I was voted as the number 1 best trash talker. Let's go. Josh Allen having fun with it. But yeah, Josh Allen, he does catch a lot of hate.
I'll tell you what. You know what it sounds like Josh Allen is? Sounds like Josh Allen is also in a league of assholes. That's exactly what it sounds like. Josh Allen and I.
The National Football League.
Yeah, exactly. Josh Allen and I simpatico. Josh Allen, he understands my pain. I understand Josh's. That's right, Josh. They hate us because they ain't us. There you go.
Yeah. You mentioned a good thing about the interceptions.
You heard me.
Yeah, okay. Good start to the show from you, Matthew. With the interception, this is more of a football thing. People need to get over the interceptions with Josh Allen a little bit, because everyone focuses on how many turnovers he has. He has to put the Superman cape on every single game, do it all himself, and no one ever focuses on how many fumbles a quarterback has, which, by the way, a fumble is worse than an interception because they pick the ball up where you lost it, whereas Josh Allen is throwing interceptions 50 yards down the field a lot of the time. So let's just calm down with hating Josh Allen because he throws picks.
QB2 Jalen Hurts, a former successful ride or die, Matthew. Saquon Barkley entered this backfield, Jason Kelce off the football field and onto TV. Any concern about a drop-off in the rushing touchdowns that make him so great in fantasy?
I think there's got to be a slight one, right? There's two things. Obviously, the retirement of Jason Kelce, the addition of Saquon Barkley, right? You pay all the money to bring in somebody the nature of Saquon Barkley, all due respect to Miles Sanders or DeAndre Swift, they ain't Saquon Barkley. Having said that, this team was a disaster last year on offense, right? They had a change of coordinator. It didn't work out, so they bring in Kellen Moore this offseason. I also feel like, and I couldn't prove this in a court of law, but I just feel like Jalen Hurts was hurt all last year. He just didn't look right. It looked like he was sort of gutting through something. And so fully healthy back this year. I do think Kellen Moore will improve this offense. The addition of Saquon Barkley should take some of the offensive pressure off of Jalen Hurts. And so while there may be, 2-3 less rushing touchdowns because there may be the tush push is slightly less effective as a play, or they want to give more love at the goal line to Saquon Barkley where they weren't doing it with Swift or Sanders. The fact is that I think the passing will be more efficient. I think it'll be improved. Remember, Dallas Goedert was banged up last year. They've had some injury issues, on the entire team. And again, I feel like Hurts wasn't 100% healthy the whole year. So I think it sort of balances out. He's my number 2 quarterback. I think there's a high floor. And I do think that because it'll open up things for Saquon, I think you'll see Kellen Moore do more RPO this year and try to get Jalen Hurts running more, which he didn't do as much last year. He had the rushing touchdowns, but I felt like he didn't
the yards.
He didn't have the yards. He wasn't doing as much RPO stuff where he would just, fake the pitch and just keep it himself and run for 8 yards.
Yeah, and I think the knee thing is the key there, where, as you mentioned, you wouldn't be able to prove it in a court of law, which would be a ridiculous kind of thing to happen for Matthew Berry to be in a court of law trying to prove to a judge that Jalen Hurts had hurt his knee. But he just didn't look like the same guy.
You remember the Saturday Night Live sketch, Frozen Caveman Lawyer? That'd just be me.
No, I don't remember that.
You guys don't
Didn't
remember
catch that one.
No?
No, I probably wasn't born.
All right, it's a long sketch. Go YouTube it. Phil Hartman is brilliant, but it was a whole thing,
Your Honor, Jalen was limping against the Cowboys.
No.
Why here? And you have to freeze frame the tape.
Why are you here? In my court of law.
The whole premise of that
Please go
sketch
home.
was, it was the dumbest thing in the world, but it's hilarious because Phil Hartman's a genius. But it would just be like, I'm just a frozen caveman lawyer, so I don't understand your laws. But, and then he would, go into this whole thing. So it's just like, I'm just a fantasy football analyst. I don't understand your laws. But, Your Honor, look at this tape. He clearly is not 100%.
Doesn't have a bounce.
Look at him limping along. He can't even outrun a linebacker, Your Honor. Please. Exhibit A, Your Honor.
Yeah, Matt
Ipso facto.
Matt Patricia ordered the code red.
So just exactly.
I think with Hurts, he's never been the shiftiest, quickest guy. Like he is more of a straight line, it's power. It's with it's his squats that propel him through guys. But last year, it really felt like he just wasn't. It felt like he had no burst. I do remember, there was one hit against the Cowboys where it's like, is he just going to miss the season? Is he just done? So I think that just with added health, with just the upside of Kellen Moore, I think we saw the offense was as bad as it could possibly be towards the back end of last season. So it should just be more creative, and that should offset Kelsey being gone and Saquon being there.
The final quarterback in Tier 1, Patrick Mahomes. And I know it's funny to ask this, Matthew, but is this a big bounce-back season for Mahomes? They won the Super Bowl, but in fantasy, this was not the Patrick Mahomes we were accustomed to having.
He had his worst statistical season fantasy-wise last year. And there's a couple reasons for it. First off, no one could catch. You know what I mean? It's way too often. It was just like, oh, MVS is up and darn it. That was honestly, how many plays were you just like, hey, he's open? Very frustrating for Patrick Mahomes, for fantasy managers that had Patrick Mahomes. Second half of the year, they went to a run-oriented. They were like, we can't pass the ball. I got no one that can catch out here. It's Travis Kelce on limited snaps. That's all I got. Rashee Rice came on, but they just didn't have anything. There's inconsistency from MVS and Justin Watson and so on. And so they went run heavy, and Pacheco just had that monster second half and through the playoffs. But I think they've addressed it this year on a couple of levels. Obviously, another year of Rashee Rice now fully integrated into that system. I remember talking with Andy Reid about Rashee Rice at the Combine. He just talked to me about, it took him a half a season to sort of learn the inside and outside routes, and to sort of they like to have him mirror sometimes Travis Kelce's routes. And so once he learned Travis Kelce's route tree, then they could confuse defenses, and they could move Travis all over the field as well. And so second year of Rashee Rice, obviously the drafting of Xavier Worthy, the addition of Marquise Hollywood Brown. We just feel like Patrick Mahomes should get back to being Patrick Mahomes. The other thing is this is a very small thing that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, but last year, 389 rushing yards for Patrick Mahomes. It was a career high. It's his third straight season with 350 or more rushing yards, but here's the crazy stat. Mahomes had 0 rushing touchdowns. Despite having a career high in rushing yards, almost 400, he didn't actually get any rushing touchdowns, which I think is fluky. So I think you can pencil in 3 to 4 rushing touchdowns over the course of the year. So that also helps it as well. Again, a bootleg here, a scramble there. Maybe there's one dive over the end zone. Yeah, give me Patrick Mahomes as QB3.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to prove this in a court of law, but I would argue that
I do like the idea of fantasy court, though, where we should prove our cases.
Yeah, it could be a segment.
Stephen, order some gray wigs and black robes.
Yes, but I would argue that no quarterback was ever more screwed by his receivers than Patrick Mahomes last year. It descended into farce, particularly that Eagles game was just a joke. And I think that they low-key kind of fixed themselves in the postseason. In the postseason, you look at Mahomes' EPA per play, back at an MVP level. So I think he'll have a monster year this year with the real receivers now back there. And I think this is going to be the type of thing where Mahomes is minus 110 to win MVP by week 10. And I think that that'll reflect itself in fantasy and his statistical production.
Let's look at Tier 2 here, and this is where we have significant running quarterbacks, because it's Lamar Jackson at QB4, Kyler Murray, who's this year's ride or die for Matthew, at QB5, Anthony Richardson at QB6. I think starting with Lamar, Matthew, it's just a matter of, can he be more consistent in Todd Monken's offense year 2 from fantasy? Because he had some bright spots last year, especially towards the end, but there was weeks where he killed you if you spent an early pick on him.
Specifically 9 different games. 9 games last year with 1 or fewer touchdown passes, 6 different games with fewer than 15 fantasy points, and that's why he's not in Tier 1. Is he talented enough to be in Tier 1? Of course he is. Does he have fantasy upside potential for Tier 1? He does, but it's the inconsistency, Connor, that you just mentioned. Career low, 19% of goal line carries last year. Lamar is their franchise. He's literally a $250 million quarterback, And you don't think that gets any better this year with King Henry in town. Honestly, that's part of the reasons why they went on and they got Derrick Henry is so, you know what, hey, we don't need to get cute around the goal line. We just hand it to Derrick Henry and step back, let him do his thing. So I think that, look, we have high expectations for Lamar Jackson, second year of Monken's offense, a fully healthy Mark Andrews who missed, most of the second part of last year as well. So there's that. And the addition of Derrick Henry should make it more balanced offense so that when Zay Flowers in his second year, I do think, again, I am at 4, but that's why he's not in tier 1 is just the consistency. Can he get a little bit more consistent? Having said that, you're going to look up at the end of the year and barring injury, he's going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, I think the key thing with Lamar is that last year, I'm not sure what the exact stat is, but through 17 weeks, because he sat week 18, so they wrapped up the 1 seed, I believe only 3 teams in NFL history had played with the lead more often than last year's Baltimore team.
Yeah.
They were just in front the entire season. And would you just get to it's the third quarter against the Lions and we're up 24 points? Lamar just doesn't have to do anything. He's just handing off. And so we just didn't get those wild Lamar explosion games where, think back to that Monday Night Football game against the Colts a few years ago where he throws for 400 yards and runs for another 100. Just the insane Lamar games. Just didn't get as many of those because he never had to throw in the fourth quarters.
Before we move on to Anthony Richardson very quickly, I spent obviously a lot of time talking about Kyler Murray, this year's ride or die, my QB5, but I think the important part, and he's in this tier for me, right? I think it's Lamar, Kyler, and Anthony Richardson, but one of the reasons why Kyler Murray is my ride or die this year is because he's not going as QB5. He's going as QB8 on Yahoo. He's going as QB10 on ESPN. His ADP has risen a little bit actually since he came out. I came out with him as my ride or die, but the fact of the matter is that still where he's going in drafts, except for drafts that I'm in, because I know you assholes are all going to take him from me today. I'm going to get sniped. But other than drafts where I'm actually in, Kyler Murray is going much later than he should. And so as you're going through sort of where you want to get these tiers, that's one of the reasons why he's a ride or die is because he's a tier 2 player being drafted as a tier 3 guy.
The final quarterback in this tier, Anthony Richardson. We didn't get to see a lot of him last year, Jay, but what we did looked like fantasy gold. Everybody knows this guy can run, almost that Cam Newton style running, big bodied, power runner, straight line speed. But how important is his development as a passer to his fantasy value?
Well, I think the best indicator here is that he has perhaps the best play caller in the entire NFL, a guy who got Gardner Minshew within 1 play of winning the division.
And it was the right
which
call.
Is completely insane. Yeah, and it was the right call. Yeah, exactly. The play worked. It was just the guy didn't throw it and the guy didn't catch it.
Execution.
Yeah, perfect play. So I think that certainly helps. I think too, Anthony Richardson, he does show flashes of refinement in his just processing of defenses. It's just there are games like the preseason game against the Bengals, Connor. I'd be keen for your thoughts on this. Just feels like his footwork can just abandon him sometimes. He's just throwing, just not with his feet set properly, and wonder if that is going to rear its head a lot.
Right, he didn't get to play a lot last year, so the mechanical process, it's a little bit rust, and it's also a little bit of a young quarterback that, number one, he's a huge player, and massive quarterbacks mechanically are always a little bit wonky because they have longer arms, sometimes they're a bigger wind-up. This is somebody that does use his lower half a lot as a runner, and sometimes that kind of makes him not set his feet as a passer. I don't worry about that with Richardson because he's so physically gifted. Like great quarterbacks that are his size, Josh Allen, Cam Newton, they do have random misses down the field where you just don't know what happened. But the big play threat is existent all the time that he's going to make up for it. It's almost that three-point shooting mentality that he'll hit enough threes throughout the game that he'll be great in terms of stats.
I agree with you.
No, Richardson.
What else do you want to talk about? All right.
No,
I'll give you one good stat that I think is really important. Last year, the Colts ranked first in both situational neutral pace and no huddle rate as well. Again, so it's not a team that unlike some quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson's fantasy value is not dependent on what the score is. To your point about how Lamar Jackson was always in the lead. The fact is regardless of what the scoreboard says, we feel pretty good about what Anthony Richardson is going to do. And the other thing is that while this is going to sound so insane, but I feel like the Colts did just the right amount, right? Looking at it purely from a fantasy lens, like in the offseason, like what you wouldn't want them to do is do too much where Richardson isn't still the focal point of the offense. But you don't want to leave him out there by himself. So, like, they're getting Josh Downs back, who we like. Michael Pittman comes back, obviously. Jonathan Taylor healthy. They draft A.D. Mitchell. But it's not like all of a sudden, they've got a zillion weapons. Like, they've got just enough weapons, I feel like, to make Anthony Richardson viable as both a passer and a runner. But they didn't do so much where, you suddenly feel like, well, Richardson's just going to be a part of this offense. He's not the focal point.
And their tight ends can block, which you kind of want for him because it's going to help him in the run game as well. So before we move from Tier 2 to Tier 3, Matthew, there's 6 quarterbacks in the first 2 tiers. How much of a priority is it to grab one of these 6 in each draft?
Well, that's what I was saying. Like that, and that was sort of the point about Kyler Murray. I don't know it's that much of a priority. That's why Kyler Murray's my ride or die, and I've got a ton of him. I've left almost every draft with him because he's a Tier 2 quarterback that you can draft as Tier 3. I don't know that it's crucial. Ideally, you would get one of these 6 because you want a mobile quarterback, but I don't know that I'm reaching for one of them. I'm okay with them at cost. Like I definitely wouldn't reach for any of the top 6. And honestly, other than like some sort of dynasty leagues or keeper leagues or superflex leagues, I don't have Allen, Mahomes, or Hurts in any one quarterback league. I don't have I always sort of wait. But there are, if you do wind up not getting one of the top 6, I see as we get into Tier 3, you'll see here there's kind of a sameness, and I would rather, at that point, if you're not getting one of these top 6 guys, and the reason they're all in this tier is because they're all elite rushers. They have dual threat ability. So once we get into Tier 3, now it's less. There's some uncertainty, and they're more one-dimensional quarterbacks. So if you get into Tier 3, then I'm definitely waiting.
Yeah, Tier 3 is, as we show here. I mean, it's pocket passers, right?
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott specifically, the pocket passers, and in that order, Stroud's QB7, Burrow's QB8, Dak is QB11. Jordan Love will give you, 2 or 3 points extra in rushing. Each week he could fall into the end zone. He's QB9. Jayden Daniels is the complete outlier in this group, Matthew, at QB10 because his game is predicated on rushing, but he's a rookie quarterback that there could be some health concerns if he takes a lot of hits, but the upside's insane.
The upside is insane for Jayden Daniels. Right, the concern is a lack of weapons beyond Terry McLaurin, an offensive line that's unproven is a kind way to put it. An offensive line that's unproven, and then again, just sort of like he's a runner and he's going to be running a lot, but he's not built like Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts or one of these bigger, or Anthony Richardson. He's built more like Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson is somebody who has dealt with injuries, throughout his career because of how much he runs. So that's the only reason why Jayden Daniels will be there. But like Jayden Daniels, if we're a year from now, we could easily be talking about Jayden Daniels as a top 5 fantasy quarterback, as a top 3 fantasy quarterback. Like he's got 1,000 yards rushing in him. Like that's something he could easily do this year.
Jay, the top quarterback in this tier is C.J. Stroud. We know how special he is, specifically as a pocket passer. What does he have to do, though, to warrant? I mean, there's drafts where he goes as a top 5 quarterback. Yeah. Statistically, what does he have to do to warrant that selection? That's an expensive cost, as great as he is.
Yeah, instead of taking Stroud at QB5, I'd rather just bet on him at 12-1 to win MVP because he's going to have to put up MVP-level numbers to warrant that kind of ADP. Yeah. So I think that with Stroud, I mean, the upside is just that he now has this completely loaded receiving core. He has an improving offensive line. And there is a chance that he is the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback in the NFL just on talent this season. I think the bearish case on Stroud would be that he played a lot of bad defenses last year and he lit up a lot of bad defenses. And when he played the better defenses, he still played fine, but it wasn't nearly as impressive statistically. Think about that Jets game, Connor, where he really struggled against Baltimore in the playoffs. His receiving core was a bit diminished by that point. So it's just difficult when you don't use your legs that much. I don't really understand why he doesn't use his legs more, given that he's not super slow or anything. But it's just never really been a part of his game, and it just makes the margin for error a lot thinner.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. And that kind of brings us to Joe Burrow, Matthew, because something that we've talked about on this desk is the cost is so different between these two, but there's a chance that the results are very similar.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a massive difference between C.J. Stroud and Joe Burrow and maybe Dak Prescott. I'm a little nervous about Dak Prescott just because, something were to happen to Lamb or Ferguson, they were also so ineffective I want to shout out to Rich Rebar, Lord Reeves, who pointed this out. But Dak Prescott led the NFL in passes into the end zone, passes into the red zone, and by like a wide margin. And I think some of that has to do with how ineffective they were at running the ball. So if they're even better, slightly better at running the ball with Zeke and Rico Dowdle this year versus how they were with Tony Pollard, does Dak Prescott have the same kind of numbers that he did last year in a year in which obviously that now he's got, like, other than CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson, like it's Jalen Tolbert, it's whatever, 31-year-old Brandon Cooks, it's not a lot. So anyway, shout out Rich Rebar. But, but I do think Stroud and Burrow, like, if Joe Burrow finishes with more fantasy points than C.J. Stroud, is anyone shocked? No, not at all. He's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I just sort of feel like we talked about, in an ideal world, I get one of those tier 2 quarterbacks. In one quarterback league, I get one of those tier 2 quarterbacks that's mobile. If not, I'm probably waiting for Jordan Love or Jayden Daniels, waiting a lot. But if I wind up with a pocket passer, I prefer Burrow at cost to Stroud. And honestly, as you'll see as we get here later, like, in the opportunity cost of a Burrow versus, say, a Matthew Stafford or a Kirk Cousins or a Jared Goff, pocket passers that are going way, way later, like, maybe it's 2 to 3 points a game, but that difference, I think, is massively made up for by the improvement in, wide receiver, running back that you'll get earlier in the draft.
Yep. I would say with Dak, this is a niche thing, but last year he beat up on a really weak schedule. He just beat up bad teams a lot, and he struggled outdoors against the good teams. And so 3 of the first 5 weeks for Dallas, they have to play at Cleveland, at Pittsburgh, and home Baltimore. Like, that is brutal. And so I think that there could be a world where people are just completely off Dak after the first 5 weeks, and then you try and trade for him at a lower value because it gets a lot easier.
And here's the other thing. I just want to talk about this. Like, this is going to go with me here for a second. But one of the things that I mentioned, and people thought I was crazy about this, but one of the things I mentioned about Jalen Hurts when I was talking about him for my ride or die was I was just like, look at their schedule. Their schedule and I forget what it was now, this is 2 years ago, but their schedule for like the first 6 games was ridiculously easy. I said, look, Jalen Hurts comes in this season where everyone's just like, Philadelphia is just a crazy sports town, and all the sports radio callers are saying, like, we should have drafted a quarterback. Jalen Hurts isn't a franchise guy. What are we doing? This guy can't win. I said, but then look at their schedule. They get out there. They start winning. I said, I think there's a very good chance. I think I said something like that. I think there's a very good chance they're 4-2. They're 5-1 after their first 6 games. And once that happens, once they start winning, all the callers shut up. And all of a sudden now the entire team is rallying behind Jalen. Hey, we can win with Jalen. Hey, we're crushing people. And so it's confidence. It feeds into Jalen. It feeds into the team. It does permeate. Again, NFL players are human beings with emotions just like all of us, like with insecurities and pettiness and ego. And so I swing that around to Dak Prescott, who didn't get the deal this offseason, he sees CeeDee Lamb get paid. He knows Micah's going to get paid. So there's rumors out there that Jerry's just going to let Dak walk, that he's not going to pay him like the franchise quarterback that he is, that he wants to be paid at. And so he's got a lame duck coach in Mike McCarthy who wasn't extended as well. And Dallas, like all Dak Prescott has heard over the offseason is like, once again, big moment, playoffs. What did Dak do? Awful game, couple of picks and a pick that should have had, and they got their butts kicked by the Packers. And so if they start out 1-3, if they start out 2-2 and he looks bad doing it, and the defense has to bail out, and all of a sudden the boo birds start going again, and this is why Jerry shouldn't pay him. We got to move on next year, blah, blah, blah. It just spirals, exactly. So Dak makes me nervous this year. I'm with you.
Yep. He's just not going to have as good a season as last year. So you set the bar extremely high.
There you go.
The Roto-World Fantasy Football Draft Guide is now available exclusively through a new partnership with Matthew Berry's
Fantasy Life. You said that shorter
than I did. Get a Fantasy Life Plus subscription and receive the Roto-World Draft Guide plus fantasy, DFS, and betting tools to help you dominate the draft and warn you about Dak Prescott all season long.
Steven, do me a favor. Call my guys at fantasylife.com and give everyone else in the league a free subscription to Fantasy Life Plus. They need it for today's draft. They give them access to the draft champion, to the tier 2 package, all the customized rankings. Yeah, just go ahead and do that if you can. Make that happen. That's my gift to all of them. Let's make this league a competition this year. Let's try to even it up a little bit.
They'll have 4 minutes exactly to use the tools before our draft kicks off. Use promo code ROTO10 for 10% off. Go to NBCSports.com/fantasylife to learn more. We're taking our first break. When we're back, tiers 4 and 5 as our quarterback primer continues. Clear the Shelters, NBC Universal Locals annual nationwide pet adoption and donation campaign returns for its 10th consecutive year, August 10th to September 10th. As part of the month-long campaign, NBC and Telemundo owned and affiliated stations across the U.S. and Puerto Rico partner with animal shelters and rescue services in their communities to promote pet adoption and raise funds to support animal welfare. Our pup today is Apollo. Producer Steven's family dog decided to be a Steelers fan instead of a Jags fan. Questionable pathway to this fandom. Loves food, belly scratches, and Najee Harris just as much as the J-Gun.
That's not possible.
Wow.
Not possible.
You and Apollo.
Not possible. I'm the preeminent Najee lover.
Step aside, Apollo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Take a hike.
Nice try.
Apollo.
All right, Primer continues.
I just took a poll. Everyone agrees the dog loves Najee more than you.
To transition from, and I love the dog breed as a fellow rescuer, but to the tier of quarterback, it's tough. I'm still working on it.
That's all right.
Now that the primers are over, I didn't find the solution.
Connor, do you think that the skills that you and Kristen employ as a dog rescuer, like as a dog adopter, are those some of the same skills that you employ as the host of this show? Like kind of the patience.
Reigning in chaos?
Yeah, reigning in chaos, the understanding, the patience.
There's no difference from
taking
when I
Matthew
leave
for
my
a
house
walk.
to when I get to work.
Okay, that's
it's
what I
the same
thought.
thing.
Yeah.
Just different species, technically.
Exactly.
Matthew's human adjacent.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
It's exactly.
Yeah, I think it's made me a little bit better hosting the show. Just a little bit better.
Fair enough. Yeah, you've got J-Gun with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, quarterback tier number 4. And this one, as we get to tier 4, there's some value options in the pocket passers. That kicks off with Brock Purdy at 12. An interesting play at 13 with Caleb Williams, just because of the upside of the number 1 overall pick is always sky high. A former number 1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence at 14. This is, Matthew, where it gets interesting to me. It feels like the guys no one cares about, but they can consistently get you the amount of points you need each week. And Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff, Tua before the month of December. Yeah. And Matthew Stafford. And then Justin Herbert all the way down the board at 19 has kind of just been left for dead in fantasy this year.
Yeah, which is sort of crazy. He's still Justin Herbert.
It might have it just corrected itself too far.
Yeah, 1,000%.
He almost he doesn't get drafted sometimes in one quarterback redraft.
Yeah, I mean, like, and we'll talk about a couple of these guys in more depth. We've talked about Jared Goff a lot on the show in terms of how good he is indoors. 14 of his 17 games this year are indoors. He averages almost, slightly under, I think, 18 points a game, slightly under 19 points a game when he's indoors. So, Goff is really interesting. Tua can be a top 10, anytime you're throwing to Tyreek and Waddle, you've got a chance at being a top 10. I do think Trevor Lawrence has a bounce back this year. I like the additions they made. Also, that was another guy that just never got healthy last year. Yep. Yeah. But it should be a more pass-friendly offense again. We like Brian Thomas. We'll see what Gabe Davis can do, but obviously Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. So just really interesting. This is why I'm saying, I just don't think it makes sense to reach for a guy. I don't know that it makes sense to reach for a guy in the tier 3 range, right? Because the difference between tier 3 and tier 4, sort of things like we can talk about Caleb and Kirk Cousins, but all these guys have top 10, top 12-ish potential. Like the difference this year between quarterback 9 and quarterback 14 on any given week is minuscule. Yep. It's going to be a little bit matchup dependent, and it's going to be does the wide receiver step out of bounds at 1 and running back runs in, or does he hold the ball out and now it's a touchdown pass?
Yeah. We'll get back to those guys.
Wow.
We'll get back to those guys. Let's talk about the most interesting one on the list, which is Caleb Williams, just because there is upside here. And we got to hear from his coach, Matt Eberflus, just on his development throughout training camp as we get closer to the season.
Yeah, I really think it comes down to play design. I'm just going to micro it down to the play. So we all know what he can do in terms of his arm talent, in terms of throwing on the move and those types of things. But in the early parts of the game and early downs, he's just asked to play point guard. Have a great operation, play point guard, get the ball to our skill, either by handing it off or throwing it to them and letting them do the run and then moving around and gaining the yards. And then when you get to the point in the game where it is a critical down or a third down or in the red zone or whatever that might be, then you might see X factor come out, and that's where it is.
As we look at Caleb Williams' preseason performances, had some really, really big-time moments, and then also some inconsistencies at times. And Matthew, when you hear that, though, from his coach, it just feels like they want structure for Caleb Williams rather than him being the hero his first year.
Yeah, rightfully so, because that's why they screwed up Justin Fields.
Well, and that's what happened to him at USC.
Yeah, of course.
And it didn't go so well as a team goal.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you bring in a Keenan Allen, you draft a Roma Dunze, you bring in Gerald Everett, who, not that he's the most exciting guy, but he's a veteran, and he's a veteran in this offense as well. And so you've got Cole Kmet and DJ Moore, the veterans from the Bears, sticking around for another year. And so, like, as you see just Caleb Williams just do stuff that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that'll work. And so, whatever, the inconsistencies, he's young, he's a rookie, that'll get refined and worked out. But, you know, they have a nice run game. Again, fantasy-wise, we don't love the three-headed monster there, but they'll be able to run the ball effectively. It'll be a balanced offense, and Caleb Williams comes into as good a situation as any number one overall pick in the history of the NFL.
Yep. I think the concern would be that there's a lot of uncertainty, obviously, just with he's a rookie, he's going to play for an offensive coordinator who's just gotten there. Offensive line is okay, but perhaps not a huge strength of the team. Keenan Allen is older. So that would be the bearish case on Caleb. And I just think that at cost, I would probably be fine buying into what I think is a more stable situation. Like at cost, like Matthew Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, these guys. But like, what is there upside for Caleb Williams to be like a top 5 quarterback, top 7 quarterback? That seems a bit rich.
I don't see that this year.
Yeah, it's hard to see him getting to the rushing. I mean, there's a guy that did have double-digit rushing touchdowns 2 years at USC, but he's also like, he's not going to be running the way that Jayden Daniels is going to run. He's not going to run like, you know, Anthony Richardson or Kyler Murray or one of those guys. So hard to see him get there. But I will say that I actually don't mind. There's definitely a better than average chance that he outperforms ADP. And assuming that you're in a one quarterback league, that's why I don't mind taking the flyer on Caleb Williams, because the replacement cost, if Caleb Williams doesn't work, isn't that hard.
Yep.
Because to your point, like Stafford, Cousins, guys like this, they're not even being drafted in leagues.
Yeah. Geno Smith, QB 25.
Geno, who was a top 10 fantasy quarterback a year ago, and now gets Ryan Grubb, who, you know, led FBS in passing yards each of the last 2 years at Washington, right?
A stable quarterback in this tier is Kirk Cousins. Now, everybody's kind of wondering where Cousins is at physically after the torn Achilles last year. Bijan Robinson was asked about Cousins this week. He said he's definitely ready to go. He told Jim Rome this, by the way, on Wednesday. You know, he looks amazing. Like, he didn't even tear his Achilles. I mean, the dude's out here sprinting in practice and just having fun with it. So, like, I know he's amped up. I know he's ready to go. But just to see his progress from where he got here to now and seeing how ready he is, I'm excited for him.
Yeah, I mean, Cousins has finished as a top 12 fantasy quarterback in points per game each of the last 4 seasons. It used to be, that's the joke. That's his name. Kirk Cousins, a top 12 quarterback. Like, he's never top 10. And he's never top 14. He's always like, he's top 12.
And never on Primetime.
Right, right, exactly. But last year, before he went down, weeks 1 through 8, tied for first in touchdown passes. He was first in pass attempts, second in passing yards. Zach Robinson, his offense coordinator, comes from the Sean McVay tree, and we've obviously seen the success that he had with Matthew Stafford in Los Angeles. They're going to be a pass-first offense. They're going to be fun. And then you mentioned Bijan, Drake London, obviously, Pitts, Darnold, Mooney. There's some nice weapons there for Kirk Cousins. So, you know, I'm at QB 15, but again, it's hard to see him into the top 10, but is he like a top 12-ish quarterback at not the price? Yes, he is.
Yep, small sample, but last year he was QB 6 points per game basis, and about half of that was without Justin Jefferson.
Jay, you often talk about the value that is, you know, the Rams offense, but Matthew Stafford specifically. Because people are going to draft Kyron Williams high, Puka Nacua high, Cooper Kupp's ADP is even going up. Stafford is a guy that, once again, is in this tier, and people really don't care about that much as a starting quarterback in fantasy, but he's a good player in a great offense.
Yep, and I think they'll be throwing plenty, enough for him to accumulate a lot of stats. In the second half of the season, he was playing at a near MVP level, and to me the key with Stafford is that I think Cooper Kupp is just back, or at least maybe not 2021 Cooper Kupp back, but will be a better version than what he was last year. And you add that into the level that Stafford was playing at in the second half of the season. This is a guy who could be a top 5-7 quarterback in terms of actual NFL play, and that could be reflected by being a top 10, back end of the top 10 fantasy quarterback.
So Matthew, in a Superflex league, which is our show league, how aggressively are you targeting
what's the name of the league?
League of Assholes.
There you go.
It's
Thank
on the Drinks Free board today.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Is this
at a bar after the show.
Is this the tier you look for that QB to, or do you wait even till tier 5, which we'll move to in a moment?
These tier 5 makes me nervous a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like
there's a lot more variables.
A lot more variables. I think I'd be more comfortable in tier 4, and then sort of same thing. Like if I've completely bailed on tier 4, then you might as well just wait till tier 6. I don't know that there's a massive difference between tier 5 and tier 6.
Bryce Young, step on up.
Well, honestly, I do think there's some upside here. But let's talk about tier 5 here. Like, you know, obviously Aaron Rodgers is, you know, there is wide range of outcomes for Aaron Rodgers this year. If he's anywhere close to, you know, 2020 or 2021 Aaron Rodgers, where he won the MVP in his last 2 full seasons with Nathaniel Hackett, then party on, right? This is a much improved offensive line. Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Breece Hall out of the backfield, kind of like Tyler Conklin. You know, they'll have a package of plays from Malachi Corley. Right. Like this is, you know, there's stuff here. Alan Lazard will be on the, you know.
He'll be out there blocking. He'll be out there blocking.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say he'd be on the sideline holding the clipboard. But either way, the fact is that Rodgers staying healthy and playing within a system, not having to do it all by himself, could easily put up decent numbers. Yeah. Especially because, as we've talked about sort of ego, and, you know, Aaron's a guy that has one. He's heard all the, you know, last 2 years haven't been great. Like, again, they got into the 5-yard line. Does he check out of a run to Breece Hall and says, I'm gonna throw a jump ball to Mike Williams. You know what I mean? Like, or hey, Garrett Wilson, just do a quick slant. I'm gonna jam you once. I'm gonna get 5 to 7 cheap touchdown passes that way.
Does he stat pad this year?
Yeah, does he stat pad?
I actually would bet, like, I think the Jets' offense is so fixated on Breece Hall in the run game that his upside feels low at times, but I think the stat padding makes him fantasy relevant. I truly do.
Yep. Matthew said he gets nervous about tier 5. Now, that doesn't mean a great deal because Matthew gets nervous very, very easily. But I am fine with a lot of these guys. Geno Smith in this new offense with those 3 receivers. I think he is going to be fine with an improved offensive line. I think that Will Levis with Brian Callahan, an improved offensive line there as well, and a couple of really strong fantasy targets.
I really think Will Levis is interesting for sure.
Will Levis on DraftKings is 20-1 to throw for 4,500 yards. To me, there is a lot of upside with Will Levis.
1,000%.
So not all these guys, but I think Levis, Smith, Rodgers, if you come out and they're your QB2 in Superflex, I think you're doing very well.
But yeah, go ahead, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to throw it to Connor on Sam Darnold, who I think is one of the stranger quarterbacks, given that, I mean, he plays for, we think, a very good offensive play caller, coach in Kevin O'Connell. He throws to Justin Jefferson, who might be the best wide receiver in the league, and he plays in a dome. Like, it is set up where it wouldn't be shocking if Darnold was a top 15 quarterback if he stays healthy.
No, he feels like a guy that could just give you 2 touchdowns through the air a week, and Darnold is somebody that will pick up free first down. So it's like the Jordan Love rushing. Hey, I got 2 or 3 extra points from him on the ground. When Hawkinson's back, I think that's where we could see the best version of Darnold.
In this offense, Kirk Cousins was a top 6 fantasy quarterback on a point-per-game basis.
Right.
And so, like, yes, Cousins is obviously better than Sam Darnold, but, like, the system is still the same. The philosophy is still the same. And so if he can stay upright, you can get there. Real quickly, again, if you're in a deeper league, like, these guys all get drafted tonight, and I think they're interesting, right? I mean, like, I do think Bo Nix in a Sean Payton offense, who also likes to stat pad and wants to prove everyone wrong. I think Bo Nix is sort of interesting. Bryce Young. Again, Dave Canales. No one, a year ago, Baker Mayfield was in this tier, and Baker Mayfield was a top 15-ish quarterback for fantasy, right? 2 years ago, Geno Smith was in this tier where it was just like no one's drafting Geno Smith. Dave Canales comes in and like Geno was a top 10 fantasy quarterback. So I do think there's some, it's not outside the realm of possibility that Bryce Young is fantasy relevant this year, given the weapons they've added and the coach of, Dave Canales. And very quickly, last thing here, Daniel Jones is 2 years removed from being a top 12 fantasy quarterback. Who'll see about the ACL, but he adds Malik Neighbors. If he brings back the rushing, like Daniel Jones could be useful in fantasy.
Yep. Fantasy season just got better this season. $1 million better. Create or join a private Yahoo Fantasy League and enter the $1 million NBC sweepstakes, plus earn extra entries to win when players on your fantasy roster score a touchdown during an opening weekend game that's on NBC or Peacock. Download the redesigned Yahoo Fantasy app or go to NBCSports.com/fantasymillion to learn more. We're taking our last break. When we're back, who's the best bet to lead the league in passing yards? We make our picks right after this. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly, plus get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. It is time for Last Call. Courtesy of DraftKings, we're going to look at our regular season passing yards leader. Did you guys do the jingle yesterday when I wasn't here, by the way?
Yeah, we did. It was great.
Was it good?
Yeah.
I'll watch it back.
Matthew didn't have great energy, but it was pretty good.
You and Lawrence
carried? We carried it.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Jay, what do you like on the passing yards board here?
So I like Brock Purdy, who's plus 2,500. Last year, he had 4,280 yards. He was about 300 yards off of the lead, and that was without playing week 17. I think the key there is just that they constantly had the lead last year, and they didn't need to throw. I think back to the Bengals game where they actually had to throw in the second half, and Purdy had 365 yards passing.
Yeah.
So I think there is scope for Purdy to lead the league in one of the best offenses in football.
It'll help if he gets Trent Williams back, but no doubt.
Brandon Ayuk, too.
Yes, and Brandon Ayuk. Those two things would help.
What about you, Matthew?
I'm going to take Jared Goff. I think, what is
800?
it? 8-1. Right? Again, we've talked about it. Like, this is somebody who throws a ton when they're indoors. 14 out of the 17 games he plays indoors as well. Jameson Williams expected to take a big leap this year, and so that's a guy that has a lot of yards after the catch, along with Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, yeah, give me Jared Goff. Might be the Lions here.
Might be.
Might be.
Here you go,
I'm going to go with Jordan Love at plus 1,600. I just think
like that.
Love is going to be tremendous this year. We've talked a lot on this desk how we think he's been undervalued in fantasy, ADP-wise, going around QB9, QB10. I mean, there's some value with him. But I think this is a team that surprisingly might throw a lot. And I think the defense, while good, is not great, that he will have to drop back and throw. That's one of the keys when chasing this award. So I like Jordan Love at that number.
Yeah, that's why I don't like Mahomes. So plus 500 is a favorite.
Great
Like
defense.
there's going to be a lot of times where he just doesn't need to throw in the fourth quarters of games.
Yeah. If you want to bet on Mahomes, bet on him for MVP.
Yeah, that is the bet. Yeah, he's like plus 475 on DraftKings for MVP. Mahomes is going to win MVP this year. I think it's coming. I think Mahomes is he's going to wash out the Justin Watson-ness of last season and blast his way to MVP.
Yeah, I like that call. All right, so
almost draft time.
Yeah, draft time. I have the number. We've the draft order for the League of Assholes has been determined. I have the #1 pick. I am on the clock.
Yes.
So my team, almost live at noon on the clock, is on the clock.
Royce Freeman.
Yeah, Royce Freeman.
Kyler
There it
Murray,
is. Rico
#1.
Dowdle. Here we go. All right, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For the entire League of A-Holes and Jay and Connor, I'm Matthew. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.